Have you ever felt a weight that has no physical form? A heaviness that doesn't sit on your shoulders like a backpack, but deep within the hollows of your chest? It is the weight of 1,000 unspoken words, the anchor of a regret from 10 years ago, and the suffocating mist of a future that hasn't even arrived yet. We carry these things, these attachments, as if they are our most precious possessions. We cling to our hurts, our identities, and our worries, convinced that if we let them go, we will somehow vanish along with them. Our minds become cluttered rooms where the windows haven't been opened in years, filled with the dust of overthinking and the shadows of what if. We are exhausted, not from the miles we have walked, but from the things we refuse to put down. This is the burden of the human heart, the belief that holding on is a sign of strength, while letting go is a sign of defeat. But what if the opposite were true? What if the greatest power you could ever possess is the simple, quiet grace of opening your hand? Consider the story of a man named Elias. Elias was a scholar, a man whose life had been dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge, the cataloging of facts, and the meticulous planning of his destiny. By the time he reached the middle of his years, his mind was a library of anxieties. He carried the memory of a business that had failed in his youth, the sting of a love that had withered into silence, and a constant, gnawing fear that he was running out of time to find the answer. He had traveled far, seeking a cure for the restlessness that kept him awake at night, pacing the floors of his mind. His journey eventually led him to the banks of a wide, ancient river that snaked through a valley of weeping willows. The air here was different, thick with the scent of damp earth and the sweet, sharp aroma of pine. It was the hour of the blue light, that magical, fleeting moment when the sun has vanished but the stars have yet to claim the sky. Elias approached the river, his boots crunching on the smooth river stones. He felt out of place in such stillness. His mind was still racing, calculating the distance he had covered and the distance he had yet to go. He saw the monk, a man whose face was etched with lines like the bark of an old cedar tree, yet whose eyes held a clarity that made Elias feel suddenly exposed. The monk didn't look up. He was focused entirely on the task at hand. Beside him sat a dozen small, square lanterns, each with a tiny candle nestled in its center. "You look like a man who has carried the entire world on his back," the monk said, his voice as soft as the water lapping against the shore. "And you look very, very tired." Elias sat down on a flat rock, the tension in his neck throbbing. "I am tired," he confessed, surprised by his own honesty. "I feel as though I am drowning in my own thoughts. I try to solve my problems. I try to plan for every disaster. I try to remember every lesson so I don't repeat my mistakes. But the more I hold on to, the heavier I become. I came here looking for peace, but I brought the noise with me." The monk finally looked up, a small, knowing smile playing on his lips. He handed Elias a sheet of paper and a small charcoal stick. "Every thought that weighs you down," the monk whispered. "Write it here. Give it a name. Give it a shape." Elias wrote until his fingers ached. He wrote down the names of people he had disappointed and the names of those who had disappointed him. He wrote down his secret shames and his grandest anxieties. As he wrote, the monk began to light the lanterns. One by one, the small flames flickered to life, casting a warm amber glow against the deepening indigo of the evening. The monk took the paper from Elias, folded it into a delicate boat-like shape, and placed it inside one of the lanterns. "This river has been flowing long before we arrived," the monk said, standing up and gesturing to the dark, swirling water. "It does not ask the rocks to move. It flows around them. It does not try to hold on to the mountain it just passed. It moves toward the sea. It is the master of non-attachment." The monk stepped to the water's edge and knelt. He placed his own lantern on the surface. For a moment, the lantern bobbed in the eddies near the shore, trapped by a protruding root. The monk did not reach out to save it or push it. He simply watched. Then, with a gentle shift in the current, the lantern broke free. It began to drift, a tiny point of light dancing on the vast, dark mirror of the river. "Now," the monk said, looking back at Elias, "release yours." Elias took his lantern, the one containing the physical manifestation of his burdens. His heart hammered in his chest. A strange sensation washed over him, a sudden, irrational fear. If he let this go, who would he be? This pain, this overthinking, this regret, it had defined him for so long. It was uncomfortable, yes, but it was familiar. It was time's his. To let it go felt like losing a limb. His hands gripped the paper lantern tightly, the heat of the candle warming his palms. "It is only a shadow," the monk encouraged gently. "You are not the light, and you are not the shadow. You are the space in which they both exist. Let the river take what no longer serves you." With a trembling hand, Elias lowered the lantern onto the water. He let go. At first, he expected to feel a sense of loss, but as he watched the glowing square of paper catch the current, something miraculous happened. As the lantern moved further away, becoming smaller and smaller, the tightness in his chest began to dissolve. He watched his failures, his what-ifs, and his meticulously crafted worries drift into the darkness. They were no longer inside him. They were out there, part of the river, part of the night. He realized that the lantern didn't need his permission to float. The river knew exactly what to do with it. He stood there for a long time, watching the tiny spark of light until it was nothing more than a pinprick on the horizon, indistinguishable from the stars reflecting in the water. For the first time in years, the silence around him didn't feel empty. It felt full. It felt like a beginning. The monk stood beside him, both of them silhouetted against the moonlight. "You see," the monk said softly, "the lantern is gone, but the light remains within you. You didn't lose anything today. You only stopped carrying what was never meant to be carried." Elias looked at his hands, the same hands that had been clenched in fists of anxiety for decades. They were open now. They were light. The river continued its eternal journey, indifferent to the stories it carried, yet offering a path for everything that was ready to move on. Elias realized that he didn't need to find the answer. He only needed to stop holding on to the questions so tightly. The monk gestured for Elias to sit beside him on a smooth, flat stone. The air was cool, carrying the scent of damp earth and pine needles. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel like a void Elias needed to fill with worry. It felt like a sanctuary. "You feel lighter," the monk observed, his voice barely a whisper, yet it carried the weight of a profound truth. "But the world has not changed, Elias. The river is still cold. The night is still dark. The burdens you carried, the lost love, the failed masterpieces, the fear of the ticking clock, they still exist in the tapestry of your past. What has changed is your grip." He leaned forward, his hands resting loosely on his knees. To live in peace is not to live without shadows. It is to learn the art of the lantern on the river. It is the practice of non-attachment. Let us look closer at what this means for your journey when you leave this riverbank. The first wisdom: observe without clinging. Think back to the lantern, the monk began. When it was in your hands, it was all you could see. Its heat burned your palms, and its light blinded you to the stars. This is how we treat our thoughts. We take a worry, a what if, or a should have, and we hold it so close to our eyes that it becomes our entire horizon. We don't just have a thought, we become the thought. He pointed to the water. Non-attachment starts with the realization that you are the riverbank, not the lantern. Your thoughts are merely lights floating by. Some are bright and beautiful, like memories of joy. Others are dim and flickering, like old regrets. But none of them are times you. The monk explained that the first step to freedom is to observe without clinging. When a painful thought arises, we often do one of two things. We either try to blow it out, which only makes us more focused on it, or we jump into the water to chase it, drowning in the emotion. Zen invites us to do a third thing: simply watch it pass. The practice: tomorrow, when a cloud of anxiety begins to gather, the monk said, do not fight it. Instead, name it. Say to yourself, I am noticing a thought about failure. By naming it, you create a tiny space, a breath of air between your soul and the story you are telling yourself. You are the witness, the silent observer on the shore. Let the light flicker, let it glow, and let it go. It has no power to stay unless you grab it. The second wisdom: trust the river's current. The river does not argue with the rocks, the monk continued, his voice rhythmic and soothing. It does not ask the bend in the stream to be a straight line. It moves with what is. This is the second wisdom. Trust the river's current. We suffer because we are constantly building dams in our minds. We say, "This should not be happening," or "Life should be different than it is." Every should is a stone we throw into our own stream, creating turbulence where there could be flow. Elias looked at the rushing water. He thought of all the years he had spent resisting his own life, fighting against the graying of his hair and the changing of the seasons. He had been exhausted not by the journey, but by his own resistance to it. Non-attachment is not indifference, the monk clarified. It is not that you do not care. It is that you stop wasting your divine energy on the impossible task of controlling the current. When you stop resisting, you find that the river itself carries you. You don't have to swim so hard, you only have to stay afloat. The practice. The monk suggested a simple ritual for the moments when life feels overwhelming. When you feel the urge to control what cannot be controlled, take a deep breath. On the inhale, acknowledge the reality of the moment. On the exhale, whisper the word yes. Not a yes of approval, but a yes of acceptance. Yes, this is happening. In that yes, the dam breaks and the energy you spent on resistance is returned to you as peace. The third wisdom, hold loosely what you love. Finally, the monk said, his voice softening with a tender, almost melodic quality, you must learn to hold loosely what you love. This is the hardest lesson, for we believe that to love something means to possess it. We want to lock our treasures in boxes. We want to keep our loved ones, our youth, and our successes frozen in time, like a butterfly pinned to a board. He looked Elias in the eye. But a butterfly pinned to a board is no longer a butterfly. It is a corpse. Life is movement. The lantern is beautiful precisely because it is moving. If you had tied a string to your lantern and refused to let it go, it would have eventually been sucked under by the current or burned to ash in your hands. By letting it go, you allowed it to remain a light. To love without attachment is to love with an open hand. It is to appreciate the flower while it blooms, knowing it will wither, and to love the person while they are here, knowing that eventually the river takes us all. This doesn't make the love smaller, it makes it infinite. It removes the fear of loss, leaving only the purity of the present. The practice. Every morning, the monk instructed, look at your hands. Remind yourself that they are meant to be vessels, not cages. Throughout the day, if you find yourself clenching your fists, whether in anger, in greed, or in fear, physically open them. Stretch your fingers wide. Let the air pass through your palms. This physical act sends a signal to your heart. I am open. I am ready to receive, and I am ready to release. Go now, Elias, the monk said, offering a small, knowing smile. The sun will rise soon, and you have many miles yet to walk. But remember this river. Remember that you do not need to carry the lantern to benefit from its light. You do not need to own the moment to be blessed by it. Elias stood, feeling a strange, wonderful sensation of being both grounded and weightless. He looked back at the river one last time. The lantern he had released was long gone, miles downstream by now, perhaps lighting the way for some other weary traveler he would never meet. The thought brought him a quiet joy. As you return to your own life, away from the metaphorical riverbank of this story, take a moment to look at your own hands. What are you carrying today that is ready to be released? What lantern are you holding so tightly that it has started to burn? Know that the river of life is wide and deep, and it knows the way. You do not have to navigate every turn. You do not have to fear the shadows. The light you seek is not in the things you accumulate or the memories you guard. It is in the very act of letting go. Release the string. Open your hands. Trust the current. May you walk your path with a light heart and an open soul. May you find the peace that comes when you stop trying to hold back the tide. And may you always remember, you are not the lantern, you are the light.